This is ContactTalkRadio.com. Consciousness in action. And you are taking action into your consciousness by tuning into Contact Talk Radio.
And on TuneIn.com, Ping.fm, and UpSnap Mobile.
Contact Talk Radio.
Throughout the nation and around the globe, from his heart to yours, it's Dear James Live on the radio, here on the Contact Talk Radio Network, bringing you intuitive insight, answers, and advice to your life questions.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Dear James Live. Express yourself, tell it like it is, and then hear what Dear James has to say. Today is all about new beginnings and starting over. And as I said in the written text for the show that's on the website, it's all about what are the hidden gifts that come from such epic change when everywhere you look, that's what you see, change. And how do we deal with it? How do we deal with this change? And how do we pick ourselves back up off the ground? Because sometimes, these changes are coming at us, and they're coming at our friends and our family members, and it's really flying at us. And it's, how do we handle all of this change? How do we handle these new beginnings? How do we start over? And those are big questions, and we're going to tackle them in this hour. So I want to remind all of you, have the courage to call in live. We're talking about new beginnings. We're talking about starting over. We're talking about change. And I want to hear from you. I want to hear what is happening and what you're faced with, what your struggles might be, and then hear what the universe has to say and hear how you might work through it or why it's happening, to give you that peace and that understanding as to why it's happening. So remember, have the courage to call in live. The phone number is 877-230-3062. The phone lines are open. And don't wait. I always say this. Don't wait to the last minute. Don't wait to be the last caller. You want to do this at the top of the hour and jump in and dive in and get the information that you need. And of course, the first two callers into the show do receive a complimentary 30-minute consultation with me. So, hey, that is priceless. So let's move into the show and talk about new beginnings, starting over. Those, new beginnings is always it has this great positive ring to it. And starting over has all of the drudgery and the lack and you just kind of feel your whole body sink when you hear starting over. I have to start over. I've been at this job for 30 years or 5 years, or I've been in this marriage for 40 years. I've got to start over? What do you mean? Why? And I kind of want to start there because it's all about the why, the how, the when, and the where. And so I'm going to walk you through these. The why, we get into these contracted spaces. We think our life is humming along, and then all of a sudden, the universe out of nowhere comes along with this lovely 2x4, as I call it, and they whack you right in the back of the head. And off you go. And all of a sudden, that job that you love or that you've been sitting at for 25 years is gone. The roof over your head is gone. The love of your life is gone. The friendship is gone. It's all these, everything's gone. And we immediately turn to why. And we have to be incredibly mindful of not asking why from a place of victimhood. Because 99.9% of the time, when you ask the question why, you already know the answer. It had been with you for a very long time. Every time epic change comes into our life, this starting over, it's because we stayed too long at the dance. And we kept kind of trying to outmaneuver ourselves. We kept trying to, kind of fake the universe. And, eventually, and they're coming along and they're giving us these little warning bells. They're, sometimes it's that subtle nuance that feeling. And you're like, yeah, but you know what? I mean, I really like this job. I know, but I really like this job. And so you kind of stretch down the road a little bit more. And you keep working it and you keep reinventing your excuses. And the universe keeps nodding and saying, we see you. And they're giving us these warnings. They're giving us these awarenesses. But we just kind of keep going. No, it's fine. I'm fine. Life is fine. Life is good. And yet, all along, we know inside, it's not. And so, when you find yourself in that moment that you've been knocked off your foundation, and you ask yourself why, be honest with yourself. Be honest with yourself to look and say, I know why. I stayed too long at the dance. I should have left 5 years ago. Okay, and so, sorry, I just had a technical difficulty here where I didn't realize I had dropped, but here I am, sorry. So, back to the point of why, that we always know why. We stayed too long at the dance, and the best way to begin this new beginning is to look and be honest about why. Why is because I stayed too long at the dance. Why is because I knew I should have left and I didn't listen. And so be honest with yourself so that you don't come to this from a place of victimhood. You want to release victimhood as quickly as possible so as to empower yourself. Now, as you're moving through that, you kind of get through the why, and the why can last a while. The why can be problematic. And then you start looking at, well, how am I going to move myself forward? I now see everything in ruin. It's laying around me. I see it in ruin. And I don't know what to do. I don't know how to do this. And how is a recognition of the fact that you're viewing life from a place of lack and limitation. How am I going to do this? How am I going to move forward? How am I going to find the money to get this job or to get to my new place? How? First it's why, and right behind it comes how. And how is about faith. How is about awareness of we don't need to concern ourselves with how. That's taking our eye off the ball, and that's going down a very dark one-way street that is all lack and limitation. What you want to do in starting over, in getting to your new beginning, is say to the universe and to whatever belief, God, Buddha, whatever system of belief and source that you believe in, say, I know I stayed too long at the dance, so I'm going to be honest with myself and release my victimhood of why. I know why. So how I'm going to leave in your hands. Because what I know I meant to do is start over, is have a new beginning. And so when we surrender how to the universe, and we just focus in, we start honing in on what is it that I am to do? What? We hone in on the what. And they will start talking to you. The universe is going to start replying to you, and they're going to say, let go of the ego mind that's leaving you in how and why. Those are kind of the pits. Those are the pits there. It's the how and the why. Move through those two to get to the what. To get to what universe is it that you want me to do? And they're going to start talking to you. That's when you want to start moving into willful action. That's when you want to start listening, resonating with your own truth, and start really moving into What? Listen, act. Vital. These are vital elements that you want to progress through. The when. When do I do this? There's all of this, we get caught up and we start going, well, when should I do this? What is the best time to me, for me to do this? When you live in when, you're living either in the past or the future. You're either looking back, wishing it was what you had just been knocked off of, or hoping to get somewhere else so that you're out of what's really the present. Because we tend to then disregard the present. And the present, it's no mistake that word has a dual meaning. Present as in point in time, but also present as in gift. So be mindful of when you're looking at when, be mindful of staying in the present moment, in the present state of consciousness. Because that will tell you, if I'm looking back, bring my focus back to the current moment. Bring myself back to universe, God, what is it that you want me to do? And they're going to talk to you. But if you're in the past or the future, you can't be in the present moment. It's impossible. And the present moment is what's going to move you forward. There's a great quote. I want to go to a quote very quickly. Wallace D. Wattles, you have heard me all speak about him before. And he wrote a trilogy, a book of trilogies. And of course, the famous is The Science of Getting Rich, The Science of Being Well, and The Science of Being Healthy. And he talks about the fact, do not wait for an opportunity to be all that you want to be. Don't sit in the present moment thinking about the future, seeing all of this lack in this, why did this happen to me, and how and what and why and where do I go from here? That's all turmoil. That's all lack and limitation. What he talks about is do not wait for an opportunity to be all that you want to be. Create that opportunity. Create it right where you're standing, right in the middle of the storm. Create that opportunity from that place. How do you do that? You calm yourself, you slow yourself down, and you say, universe, what am I to do? And it's going to take practice. You're going to have to practice tuning out your ego, your fear, your ego mind, because it's all about survival. The ego is all about survival, and it's about running the show, and it's about wanting to have control of the show. And as you heard last week, Dr. Jan and I talking about the fact that it's not about eradicating the ego. You want a very healthy, strong ego. But you want the ego to be, in certain instances, subservient to the soul. You want to lead with your soul. And the only way you can hear that message is if you calm yourself and you listen into source and you say, okay, so in this present moment, what you're asking me to do is this. And whatever that this is, act upon it. Take that small step, as Wallace D. Wattles is saying, is take that opportunity in this present moment and create something with it. That act, that step, will take you to the next step. And they start to build upon each other. One opportunity in the present moment to the next opportunity in the present moment. One after the other after the other. It's so on and so on and so on until what you come to realize is your starting over is actually your new beginning. You're into your new beginning. Because that starting over time frame, that starting over period, can be an eternity if you're stuck in the why and the how. Why and how are killers. They will keep you mired in lack. They will keep you in fear, in doubt, in victimhood. You can be there for an eternity, and that is not a fun place to be. And that is certainly not what the universe wants for any of us. We are talking about express yourself, new beginnings, starting over, tell it like it is, and then hear what Dear James has to say. Again, first two callers calling in, have the courage to call in live, and let's talk about this, and let's talk about what's going on in your life. The phone number is 877-230-3062, and the first two callers do receive a complimentary 30-minute intuitive consultation. We'll be right back after this message.
The desire to be more consciously enlightened is innate. Do you feel there's more to life? If so, find the resource that's right for you by going to DearJames.com/resources. You are the reality you create. Make it a great one. When you ask a question, the universe hears you, and in a multitude of ways, they seek to communicate with you to provide the intuitive insight, answers, and advice you seek. From serious to silly, monumental to mundane, there's nothing the universe can't cover. Maybe the insight you receive is exactly the affirmation you were looking for. Then again, it may just give you a whole new perspective on things. And that's the beauty of the universe. Submit your question to Dear James at DearJames.com and click Ask.
The gift of giving is immeasurable. Give of your time, talent, resources, and money. Give not only because you can, but because by doing so, it is already coming back to you. As a people, we are only as strong as the least among us. Together, we harness the power of the collective whole and see through our deeds the power of miracles, both large and small. Find the charity that's right for you by visiting www.DearJames.com and click on Charitable Giving. One person or kind act really does make the difference.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Dear James Live. Express yourself. Tell it like it is, and then hear what Dear James has to say. Today's topic, new beginnings and starting over. And as we went to the break, I was talking about Wallace D. Wattles, and I want to go back to him for a minute. And another quote of his is, "The very best thing you can do for the whole world is to make the most of yourself." That is epic and profound when you hear that. The very best thing you can do for the whole world is to make the most of yourself. It's not about us. It's not about our individual selves. And perhaps, and I understand, in that moment when we have been knocked off of our foundation and we're in this place of having to start over, it feels like that. It feels like the only thing that matters is whether or not I can survive. I can breathe, that I don't absolutely just collapse into despair. I get it. But the greater and bigger message is for each of us to realize and to come forth into this world and to say, the very best thing I can do for the entire world is to make the most of myself. That's profound. You know, like, what gifts are you not giving to yourself, let alone the rest of the world. And I already hear people going, oh, what's he talking about? How am I, this one little person, this speck, this fleck? What is it that I matter? But, I'm here to attest to the fact that we all matter, and that you matter, and that just your one kind gesture, your one great act, your one simple act sends a ripple throughout the universe. And so when we start to look through the lens of how do I make the most of myself so as to give the very best of myself to all, to everyone? Those are big questions, and that's what the universe, that's what starting over is all about. That's when we've stayed too long at the dance. It's because we're not giving the very best of ourselves anymore. We've gotten complacent. We've gotten bored and complacent and just nonchalant about life. And we didn't come here to just kind of glaze through it. We didn't come here to just, just another day in paradise. And yet what we're really doing isn't that. It's about living, and it's about bringing our A game so that the very best thing you can do for the whole world is to make the most of yourself. I want to go into where. It's the where. Where do I go from here? Where is a big question, because it's one right behind, when you can finally get through the why and the how and the when and the what, because the what is constant. What is it that I'm to do? It's the where. Where do I go from here? And the interesting thing is that where is associated with looking outwardly. And you want to be mindful of not looking outwardly for your where, because that can still be tied up with the why, which is victimhood. The where, you want to turn that around and look in. Look inward for your answers. You already know why it happened, because you weren't being the very best you came here to be. Stayed too long at the dance. I'm honing this and drilling it in. But the where isn't about, well, where do I go? Somebody can tell me. Why don't you tell me where to go? It's not about anyone telling you where to go. It's about you listening and understanding internally, where do I go from here? And the universe is going to be right there answering. They're going to be right there peeling back that onion, unlayering it, unfolding. The beautiful flower, it's all unfolding. It's going from the bud to the bloom. And it's all about that unfolding, that awareness of you are the empowered one. It's not outside of you. Your empowerment is within you. It doesn't come from me, dear James. It doesn't come from any other practitioner. It comes from you. And we can be there on the road as guidance or as reflections, as mirrors, as I've always said. That is part of our purpose. But it is not for us to do for you that which you can do for yourself. So there's a calling. The universe is calling you to rise up and embrace new beginnings. They are calling you to rise up and start over. If you know you've already been at the dance too long, as we're talking right now, if you know that, take proactive steps to rise up, seize your empowerment, your internal empowerment, and start asking the universe, what do you want me to do? Where do you want me to be? What is my next step? It's epic. It's powerful. It is scary. I don't want anyone to tell you, and I'm certainly not, that it's some easy breezy cakewalk, because it's not. I've done it. And I have shared with you before, and I'm going to share with you again. In me coming to Dear James, in me becoming Dear James, it was traumatic for me because it meant leaving everything I knew, all of the identities I had built for myself, all of the comforts, everything. I was going to be challenged in ways that I had not yet understood. And I kept staying too long at the dance. And I had a wonderful guide that kept saying to me, you have to show up. You must show up. And I kept nodding my head and going, And I knew exactly what she meant. I knew exactly what she was telling me. She was delivering a message to me. And I knew exactly what she was saying. And I kept nodding my head and going, And I would make my excuses and I would continue on not being the very best I could be. Until one day, the universe, with their infinite wisdom, took out their 2x4 and just knocked me. And they said, okay, do we have your attention now? And of course they did. And I was still trying to negotiate, to barter with them. Well, if you'll just let me be this or stay here that long or do this or do that, then, I'll come along at some point and do this starting over bit that you're presenting to me. These new beginnings. And they weren't having any of that. They kind of laughed in my head and went, ha, that's funny. That's clever. That's funny. And then, no matter what I did in my old identity, my old way of making a living, my old way of being, of living, nothing worked. Nothing. It was absolute lockdown. And I literally had this moment of surrender, and I said to them, you're not going to let any of this other stuff happen, are you? And as you can imagine, that resounding boom of a no came back. And I knew before I asked it, that the answer was no. Because I was meant to show up. I was supposed to show up, and I wasn't doing what I was supposed to do. And so I had then this moment where I said, okay, I get it. I have to start over. I have to show up. I have to become that which I said I would become. And I began my journey. And I didn't stay in why because I already knew why. I had signed up for something greater. I had signed up for a different path. And I knew that to be absolutely true. And I knew that I was also being the master of avoidance of accepting that role. And that was on me. That's my responsibility. And so for each of you, if you're looking at different circumstances in your life right now, and these words are ringing true to you, then don't wait to be hit by the 2x4. Start interacting and start moving yourself towards what you're meant to be doing. And if you've already been hit by the 2x4, pick yourself up and get out of why as fast as you can. Because why is just a trap. Why is all about self-pity and lack and limitation and victimhood. It's all filled with that. And don't bathe in it and don't stay in it because it's not a pretty place. But as I continued to move forward, and I would say, what is it? Okay, what is it that you want me to do? And interaction started happening. And I would say, okay, well, I need to do this way, this, okay. And they would start working with me. And but they were working with me because I was moving into alignment with my higher self, my truest purpose, the very best of me for the rest of the world and for myself. Even though I couldn't see that for myself. I couldn't see that at that moment. I knew it to be true, but I couldn't necessarily see it. And then one step became the next step, and literally everything I touched with Dear James was an open window, an open door, a green light. The most amazing people I have had the privilege to meet have come into my life. Every time I needed something, it was as if by magic people presented themselves. People showed up in the most miraculous ways, large and small. And so I stand before you in that way as a testament to the fact that I've lived what I'm talking to you about. I've walked this path. And it was frightening. It was scary. It was unsettling. It was unnerving. The number of people that have known you for a long time, and they come they come up to you out of good intentions, and they say, "But are you sure? Are you sure? You're really talented at all this," and but they didn't have the, it was out of their concern for me. But what they didn't know or have a vantage point of was that internal conversation that each of us is having with our Maker, with the universe. They can't see that truth. We know it. We see it. It's very, very personal, and it's intimately yours. Each one of us has it. And so, as that comes about, their intentions were to question. And when those questions come and you face them and you're starting over, in your new beginning, stand with this great stoic resolve, this knowingness in your being that you are on your true path, that this starting over is a blessed gift. You chose it for yourself. And it's only the fears that are coming about, that are coming along, that you need to overcome. You've heard me say many times, fear is your friend. It is a catalyst. Fear is an energy. And we can see fear and that energy as positive or negative. It is within our empowerment to see it as a positive catalyst, a positive force of energy. And so you make fear your friend. You're here. You're that friend that gets me all nervous and makes my stomach feel like I'm going to toss my cookies. And you're here to move me another step forward. Okay. Thank you. Because it's your friend. It's your accelerator, your motivator, that catalyst, that fire. Letting go of the past is your freedom. If you're trying to begin again, to begin a new beginning, to start over, and you've got your head cocked all the way around looking backwards, looking at all the good old days, looking at how great it was before the marriage ended, or the job went away, or the savings, the life savings was wiped out. If you're looking backwards, you're going to be running into a lot of things on your way forward. Not fun. So, letting go of the past is your freedom. Opening yourself to hear, see, and feel the signs that are being given to you, and they are going to come from everywhere. From dreams to people making a single word out, an utterance out of someone else's mouth. Opening the newspaper and seeing an ad. Walking down the street, a phone call from a friend. The signs are just going to start coming to you like crazy. Those signs are your awareness that you're on to something new, that you are open, that you are opening yourself. You are no longer contracted or restricted or limited. You are open and ready for business. It is your awareness. We walk too often in life without our awareness, without our hear it, see it, feel it. We put these blinds on, these blinders, and even when we're feeling it or we see it, oh, that can't possibly be what that is, and we talk ourselves out of our awareness so as to stay in a state of unconsciousness. So you're, at times, consciously being unconscious. I know that because I've done that. I did it many times, and I knew when I was doing it, which makes it all the worse because we know, if we're going to be really honest, and you know it's all about tell it like it is, and then hear what DearJames and the universe. So we know, tell it like it is, and then hear what they have to say. We know when we're lying to ourselves. We know when we're not listening. We know when we're limiting ourselves. We know when we've stayed too long. We know when we're in a place of self-pity and victimhood. We know. And so, opening ourselves to knowing that, to owning that, and then to accepting the signs as they come is your awareness. Now, with all that going on, what's left? Well, what's left is willful surrender. If you won't surrender to your own life force, if you won't flow with the river, then much like the salmon, you are swimming upriver all day long, every day, every year, every month into existence until the universe comes by because they're nudging and the lights are blinking and they're, hey, we're trying to get your attention. You're supposed to go over here. You know, this is until they just go whack. And then, you know, it's some catastrophic sometimes event that just brings you to your knees because we're not listening. And we are meant to listen. So willful surrender. And I talked about this in The Power of Surrender. Surrender is the most beautiful word in the English language other than the word empowerment. Because to surrender is to empower yourself. It is not waving the white flag and giving up and losing yourself and giving over to another and all of those other meanings of surrender. The definition of surrender that I'm talking about is when you recognize there's a better way. When you surrender your ego, all of the layers of the identities that you told yourself you must be or should be or have to be in order to be loved or accepted or fit in. When you surrender all of that stuff to make room for everything that you truly are, epic transformation and transcendence comes to you. Wallace Wattles goes on to say, the only service you can render God is to give expression to what he is trying to give the world through you. The only service you can render God is to make the very most of yourself in order that God may live in you to the utmost of your possibilities. He wrote these words 110 years ago. Stop and think about that for a minute. 110 years ago, this incredible prophet spoke these words and said, the only service you can render God is to give expression to what he is trying to give the world through you. The only service you can render God is to make the very most of yourself in order that God may live in you to the utmost of your possibilities. That says it all. All the universe wants for you is to express your greatness through you so as to realize all of these abundant possibilities that are within you. They are not external of you. They are in you. They are your possibilities. They are your probabilities. They are your gifts. That is the beauty of what we're talking today about in New Beginnings, Starting Over. You're listening to Dear James Live. Express yourself. Tell it like it is, and then hear what Dear James has to say. We'll be back after this station break.
Available for private, individual, group, and corporate consultations, Dear James will provide you with the intuitive insight, answers, and advice to your life questions. Schedule your consultation by going to www.dearjames.com and click on Consultation. The gift of giving is immeasurable. Give of your time, talent, resources, and money. Give not only because you can, but because by doing so, it is already coming back to you. As a people, we are only as strong as the least among us. Together, we harness the power of the collective whole and see through our deeds the power of miracles, both large and small. Find the charity that's right for you by visiting www.dearjames.com and click on Charitable Giving. One person or kind act really does make the difference.
When you ask a question, the universe hears you, and in a multitude of ways, they communicate to you the intuitive insight, answers, and advice you seek. Ask Dear James a question and experience the magic of the universe. Visit DearJames.com and click Ask.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Dear James Live. Express yourself. Tell it like it is, and then hear what Dear James has to say. Today is about new beginnings and starting over. And before we went to break, really what this is about is the long journey home. Capital H-O-M-E. The long journey home. Because that's what our life is really about. It's about returning back to the place from whence we came and making the most of the journey while we were here. That's really, really what this is all about. New beginnings, starting over. It is not about torture and punishment and regret and lack and abuses and all of this stuff. It's not about that. It is about the long journey home. Wallace D. Wattles says, there are three motives for which we live. We live for the body, we live for the mind, we live for the soul. No one of these is better or holier than the other. All are alike desirable, and no one of the three, body, mind, or soul, can live fully if either of the others is cut short of full life and expression. We walk around living for the mind, living in the mind and for the body, And we forget that we even have a soul, let alone what its purpose is. So the fact that there is an imbalance, that we are literally living in our heads, in our mind, and focused in our three-dimensional world here of the body, of the mind, we are robbing ourselves of the soul. Nourishment for the soul needs to be on your daily table. It's not enough just to eat and exercise and talk and think. You have to be willing to listen. You have to be willing to reconnect to source. You're a soul in a body, not a body that has a soul. You are a soul first and foremost. So place these into balance. Become more consciously aware of the need to nourish your soul, to listen to your soul, to hear what it says. A dear friend of mine told me this beautiful, beautiful saying, and she said, when you pray to God, you're talking. When you meditate with God, you're listening. Such a beautiful, profound truth. So, surrender to your long journey home. Empower yourself to begin anew, to start over, to face it with just a profound knowingness, this strength in you, because it's there. Have you noticed, at the worst of times of humanity, the resilience of the human spirit, the soul, is so profound, it alters our world. You see this in the smallest of acts and in the greatest of acts. It's about the long journey home. I want to talk to you for a second because we left off and go back to the fact of that we've talked about willful surrender being your catalyst. It's that catalyst because you're surrendering. It's this knowingness, this peace. And the final element that you'll need in this long journey home of starting over each time it happens. And let me be clear. I want to be really clear with you. This isn't a one-time, I have to start over and I do it, and I master it and it's done. No. The long journey home is all about change. It's all about starting over each time you know it's time to do so. So it's not a one-act play. It's like, a 1,000-act play. Each time you know you're called to action, you're called to start over, to begin, to have a new beginning, heed the call, listen, and start implementing all of the elements that I've talked to you about. But the most crucial one, once you're conscious of this fact and once you settle into your awareness and once you start receiving and once you surrender, is the willful action that must follow. That is your deliverance. Willful action is your deliverance. That is the catalyst, that is the actionary. That brings it all to fruition. That is when you see, because it's not enough. I want to say this to you. It's not enough to keep saying, I want to win the lottery. I want to win the lottery. I want to win the lottery. And you're praying and you're praying and you're praying. And finally, God answers back and says, buy a ticket. If you don't marry willful action to your innermost desires and to your awareness and to your knowing that you have stayed at the dance too long and it's time to start over. It's time to move out of why and into what. What is it that you want me to do? To move in to listen. Nothing will ever happen. It is not going to drop out of the sky and fall into your lap. It doesn't work that way. Dear James would not be here today if I had sat and waited for it to miraculously happen. It wouldn't have come. It took willful action. It took faith. It took fear as my friend to face that fear and to walk through it or walk with it. It took all of these beautiful gifts. It took me seeing that which I could not see. I couldn't see the whole picture, but I could know my own internal truth, my own internal wisdom, that I knew that it was right. And to each of you, you know what I speak of. You know that feeling in your gut, in your being, that's telling you to move forward, to walk away, to walk through, to express yourself, and to express the highest quality of yourself. Don't let fear hold you back. Utilize it as your friend, as this positive force. Walk with the universe. Talk with the universe. Listen to the universe. We are all being guided every single day of our earthly existence. It's what we came here to do. And when you realize that the long journey home is personified, if you will, in the old adage of it's not the destination but the journey that matters, you'll come to understand that it's exactly that. It's your journey that matters, and it's your willingness to surrender and walk through it with grace and strength and empowerment and beauty. And you can get there. We can all get there. And we can be the very best us, not only for ourselves, but for every person in our existence, in our immediate life, and for the world as a whole. That's the beauty of new beginnings and starting over. You've been listening to Dear James Live. Express yourself. Tell it like it is, and then hear what Dear James has to say. I'll be back with you again next week. And as I always say, no matter where you are, or whom you're with, or what you're doing, wrap yourself in goodness. Thank you.
You've been listening to Dear James Live on the radio with your host, Dear James. Gain intuitive insight, answers, and advice to your life questions and so much more by tuning in next week and visiting DearJames.com.